Alrighty, hello. So today I'm going to just talk briefly about the idea of holding our issues in our tissues and holding on to emotions and what that looks like and the impact that it can have on our bodies. And then I'm going to go ahead and run you guys through a guided myofascial unwinding meditation to help you release those issues from your tissues, which I am super excited about. I just spent a whole bunch of time deep diving, trying to find the perfect background music for the meditation, and I stumbled across some pretty much when I was about ready to throw my hands up and give up. I found, I hope, exactly what I'm looking for. It is a heart chakra, 639 hertz frequency for some heart healing during the guided meditation. So first, I just wanted to kind of talk to you guys a little bit about the idea behind holding our issues in our tissues. Somatic healing. I've heard people, talk about it in many ways, that we hold on to trauma. Our tissues have stored memory. The body keeps the score, right? Huge, very scientific book all about this. So I'm just going to run you guys through a brief little description of what that looks like from my experience, what I've seen in working with years, almost 15 years now, wow, of patients and clients. And so kind of the idea behind it, this is my favorite analogy to use, is if you think about a boiling pot of water, right? Like, it doesn't just boil like right away, right? You take the pot of water, you fill it up, you put it on the stove, you turn up the heat. The heat slowly begins to rise, Okay, well, now the water is like a little tepid. And then it turns up a little more, and now it's kind of more warm. And slowly the heat is stored in that water, and it gets hotter and hotter. And now you have some bubbles, right? And then the heat just keeps building and building in that water. And now you've got it bubbling and steaming, and it's just like bubbling over the top, steaming, just trying to dissipate that heat, right? Well, that's the idea of what happens with emotions and trauma that we have. So if we undergo something that is traumatic to us, say a kid that witnesses, something traumatic, kids witness like a car accident, and they see the police and they hear the lights, and they see, paramedics and first responders coming to the scene. Well, a lot of times they need to get that out of their bodies, and you'll actually see very young kids playing that out. They get it out through play. You'll see them interacting, that same scene with their friends and getting that traumatic experience out of their body. That's how they play. They get the emotions, the trauma that they experienced through witnessing something traumatic. That's how they get it out of their body. And as we get older and we tend not to play as much, we still need to get that out of our bodies, right? So sometimes that could look like emotions or talking about the trauma. Well, what if, that's something that we went through and we weren't allowed to tell anyone, and we had to keep it secret? Or if you grew up in a household like mine where it was not okay to express emotions, at least for me, as the kid, like you got to stuff it all down and people please and be happy all the time. And, if you're scared or sad or whatever, and you don't have that safe space to get those emotions out, each little, or, each of those traumatic experiences, gets stuffed down inside, right? So that turns up that heat, that pressure, just a little bit. And then something else traumatic happens, or you're sad because your chocolate fell on the floor, but it's not okay to cry about it in your house. Like these traumas can be capital T traumas, as my relationship coach likes to talk about, which I'll link her so that you guys can also, she's freaking amazing. Capital T traumas, baby T traumas. It could be something like that, right? Like a baby T trauma, your chocolate fell on the floor and you're sad and you want to cry about it. And your parent says, well, you don't have to cry about it. And now you're like, oh. And you stuff that down and you hold on to it, right? You turn up that heat a little more. And then something else happens. And you're not able to, for whatever reason, release the trauma, those emotions. You're not able to just let them flow. And you stuff it down more and more, and you're slowly turning up that boiling pot of water. You are slowly turning up that inflammation in your body. So now, little things that you might have, like say you have like bulging disc, something that, you know, many people in the population have. And maybe for somebody whose inflammation isn't turned up, they might have that bulging disc, but it's not irritating them in the slightest, and they're just going about their daily business because they don't have like the same stored inflammation in their body that you may have from the stored trauma, from the stored emotions. And it just keeps getting turned up more and more and more, until pretty soon your body is just screaming, trying to release some of the tension, some of the inflammation that is stored in your body. And now you've got this like bubbling pot, right, that is just waiting to be released. And that's a lot of times what happens when people find their ways on their healing journeys, is they have had years of stored trauma and stored emotions that they've been through, just built up in their body, bursting at the seams, waiting to be released, waiting to come out, waiting to finally be free. And what happens is now those emotions are ready to be felt. So a lot of times as a kid, maybe it wasn't safe to feel that emotion or to show that emotion, whether it was like neglect, abandonment, not feeling seen, not feeling heard, feeling judged, whatever it was. And it wasn't safe to express your emotions at that age, feeling like a burden. And now, as an adult, you are in a place that you are ready to release those emotions and feel those emotions. And so a lot of times when people are on their healing journeys and they're, you know, opening up the floodgates for these emotions to start being felt, to start coming up to the surface, a lot of times these emotions are coming up from things that are happening to us in our current experience. Really, that it's an emotion that was stuffed deep down in childhood that you weren't safe or able to express at that age. So now something happens into adulthood to trigger that emotion, because you are old enough and you are strong enough now to feel that emotion and to release that emotion and to heal. We can't heal what we don't feel. So, example, this was a recent one for me. With my dating experience, I had two men on two separate occasions. With one was a first date, one was a second date. Text me to tell me that they were going to be really late for our date, for picking me up for a date. And the first time it happened, I don't know, it didn't quite trigger those emotions yet. I think I was too, in the moment of definitely feeling angry, like I'm paying for a sitter so that we can go out on a date. Like, it's important to me that our dates are at the time that we plan them. but not realizing what was going on in that moment. And the second time it happened, oh boy, did that one trigger me when he said that he was going to be late. And I mean, not just like 10 minutes late, I mean like an hour and a half late to the date. And the second time it did hit me and it did trigger those emotions. And I just sat in my car and let those emotions flow. And I just felt like so not prioritized. I felt very, very not prioritized is how I was feeling in that moment. And I just sat there and let all the tears flow. And I was like, okay, well, if I'm feeling this, where does it stem from? And realizing how much I didn't feel prioritized as a child. Growing up in a household where my mom was the breadwinner and she was also the caretaker. So she would, you know, get me up and ready bright and early and off to daycare. And then she would be at work for 12 plus hours. And then she would be the one picking me up from daycare and bring me home. And by then it's just time to get me ready for bed and put me to, like, get me some dinner and put me to bed, right? There was no like bonding, and I didn't feel prioritized. I felt like work came first. And realizing that that's exactly what these men were presenting me with, an opportunity to heal from, is emotions that I had just completely stuffed down from childhood. And now it was coming up to show me and give me that opportunity to heal from those years of feeling like that as a child. So I just let myself sit there in the car and just cry and cry and cry. And then I went inside and I cried some more. And then I told my friend about it and I cried some more. And then I told my relationship coach about it and I cried some more, until I could realize, you know, that was something that just, it was a big wounding that needed to be healed from childhood, and something that now going forward, I can say that I want to prioritize myself in my life and starting my day for me. I enjoy starting my day with journaling, little mini workouts. Sometimes I do one or the other. It just depends on how long they take. And then drinking a cup of tea, and then getting myself dressed, and then getting my kids up and ready for the morning. I find that when I start my day with attending to others, attending to my kids, or responding to texts, or whatever it is, that I feel much more flustered and angry throughout the day. And it's because I didn't start my day by prioritizing myself. So anyways, hopefully that example helps some. There's so many different, you know, examples of stuff that you guys have held on to for all these years. And so this meditation that I'm going to lead you through is going to allow you to release those emotions, that stored trauma, that tension from your body. So I'll lead you through something called myofascial unwinding. Fascia is the connective tissue in our body that literally encompasses everything. So it lies below the skin, and they have literally dissected a piece of fascia all the way from the tip of somebody's toe, the bottom of the foot, up the back of the leg, the back, all the way around the head to the tip of the tongue. One solid piece of fascia. So literally when we say everything's connected from head to toe, it's so accurate. And there's also separate fascia that envelops each like of the different muscle groups. And this fascia is this like connective tissue that should expand with the muscles and allow blood flow underneath and allow the nerves to glide and the muscles to glide. And what happens is that tension and that inflammation can create tightness in that fascia. So if you think, this is kind of my gross analogy, but if you think about like the casing on a sausage, when it's really tight and the sausage can't expand, and then when you cook it in the sausage, the fascia expands and the sausage can expand. So this is a really good way to allow that fascia to unwind and release. And so during your meditation, you may find yourself wiggling and twitching, and you know, whatever movements come about, totally just let them release. Let yourself wiggle, get your wiggles out, get your sillies out, right? Whatever emotions arise, go ahead and let them flow, let them release. And then after that meditation, then we'll move on to the next chakra, the sacral chakra. And also you can come back to this meditation anytime you feel like you need to get some tension out, some emotions out, some trauma out, and release and let it flow. So I look forward to that, and then working with you guys on the next chakra soon. I love you.